Welcome back to Animal Appreciation. I think I forgot to do this one last week, but this week we are talking about weasels. Kind of. So, there's quite a large amount of weasels in the mustelid family. Not all of them are your traditional weasels, so for the sake of this video, I am not including otters, skunks, or badgers. It's just the more weaselly weasels, you know? Up first, we have a rather well-known type of weasel, the stoat. And while you may be thinking that's not, very well-known, it's just, a little guy, they are a bit more recognizable in their winter morph, much like Arctic foxes and Arctic hares. During the winter, they turn all white, and during the summer, they turn brown for better camouflage. The other kind of well-known name for stoats is the ermine, which you may be a little bit more familiar with, because these guys were used very commonly for their fur. Less so now, they're not quite as common as faux fur has increased in popularity, but when you would hear ermine coat or ermine details and all that, that is where the fur was coming from, this little guy. They are a pretty common little guy living throughout a bunch of areas in North America as well as Europe and Asia. They're pretty common. They're kind of rare to see because they're secretive and largely nocturnal, but their populations are doing pretty well. Next, we have what is known as the European polecat. So this does look quite a bit like domestic ferrets, and it's thought that this is where the domestic ferrets originated from, the European polecat, and then it got domesticated, and now we have our regular ferrets. While it does look quite a bit like a ferret, it is a different thing, and it's found in a bunch of areas of Africa as well as Western Eurasia. And again, while they look cute, while they do look like ferrets, these are not pets, these are not domestic, these do not make good pets. Next, we have an actual ferret species, the black-footed ferret, which if you've been here for a while, you may remember from my second ever episode of Endangered Species Spotlight, where I covered these guys. They are very rare. They were almost extinct in the wild at one point, but have been making a comeback. We love to see it. While historically they did live throughout most of the United States, Canada, and into Mexico, now their range has been greatly reduced to only a couple spots in North America, in United States, and Canada. Their population is making a comeback, but it's not near as much as it used to be, which is unfortunate, but they're coming back, so we love that. Next, we have the American mink. Now, minks are another animal that are commonly used for fur. I didn't, but my group dissected a mink last year. I didn't dissect the actual mink, I dissected the dogfish, but my friends dissected the mink. It was interesting. I will say the dogfish was the better one. It was less gross, but we actually got the mink cadavers from a fur farm, so the minks were raised and then they were used for their fur, and then the parts that weren't fur were donated to the university where we got to dissect them. Now, there are a few different types of minks. This one specifically is the American mink that lives in North America. I think it's pretty common. It's got a pretty decent range. There is also the European mink, which is more rare. I don't think it's endangered, but it is a lot rarer than the American mink, and it lives in areas of Europe and Asia. Up next, we have kind of the less weaselly weasel, but I still wanted to include it because it's more of a weaselly weasel than a skunk is. This is the wolverine. It is the largest type of weasel, largest in the mustelid family. I also did an endangered species spotlight on them a while ago. They are very, very rare to see by virtue of being both endangered and very, very shy and living in pretty remote areas. They like the northern range, so they're found throughout a bunch of areas in Canada, mostly the territories, as well as Alaska and some places in Russia. This is the fisher. It is, once again, found in a bunch of areas in North America, largely Canada and the northern United States. They are a more aquatic of the weasel families. They do tend to like being in lakes and streams and swimming, not nearly as much as otters, but more than wolverines. This is the marbled polecat. It's another type of polecat, but this one is found largely throughout Asia as well as some areas in Europe, but mostly Asia. It prefers the grasslands and kind of drier, more deserty areas. I think it's very cool, but it is kind of hard to find a good picture of these guys for some reason. Most of the pictures I looked at when, like, on Google looking for this stuff for this video looked like very bad taxidermy of marbled polecats, which, I don't know, I just find weird. Next up, we have my absolute favorite of the weasel family, the pine marten. There are a couple different species of these, actually. There's the American species as well as the European species. However, they are pretty widespread throughout both of those continents. They prefer, like, more woodsy, coniferous forest areas because they do live in trees and they hunt squirrels and stuff. And part of the reason that they're my favorite is they are very, very effective hunters, while also looking like little teddy bears. Like, weasels in general are very, very good hunters, like pretty much all weasel species. They're very effective and very optimized, but these guys in particular are just very, very good at what they do, very efficient, and also they're so fucking cute. This is the African striped weasel, and weirdly enough, another weasel that's hard to find a picture of that doesn't look like bad taxidermy. It lives in most of the areas of Africa below the equator, so ranging all the way from the Democratic Republic of the Congo down through Kenya, all the way into some areas of South Africa. And finally, rounding out our weasel discussion, here is the mountain weasel, a very small and very, very cute type of weasel that's found in a bunch of areas in Asia. Most commonly is found in India, but it does range into other parts such as Mongolia, Kazakhstan, a bunch of those areas around there. And it is tiny. It's not the smallest type of weasel, but it's up there, and it is also so cute. Weasels get kind of a lot of flack for being sneaky and like being kind of, you use the word weasel and weaselly as an insult. I think that's kind of unfair because most of them are very, very cute, actually, and they're just really good at what they do. They're very effective predators, and they're very important to the environment, so give some weasels some love, and at the very least, just look at how cute some of them are.